Welcome back to Wisdom Journey. Today's guest is Stephanie Hayes, founder of Assets to Exit, who helps established entrepreneurs shift from chasing revenue to building real, lasting wealth and plan their perfect exit. Stephanie will show us how to design an asset-based business model that multiplies value over time. No Silicon Valley funding required. Let's dive in. Before we dive into questions regarding the podcast episode, I like to ask a couple of questions just for my guests to know who they are listening to. Yeah. Okay. You built businesses and you've helped others exit successfully and even acquire the company yourself. What's one lesson you learned the hard way that you now always share with your clients?
Only one.
Okay. Okay. So you have you have a lot of lessons. Okay.
I have many lessons that I've learned.
Okay.
Build a business for
So
yourself,
okay.
not for anyone else.
Okay. Okay. So okay. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. You know, one of your major focus is like it's helping people build a business that it's easy for them to exit, right?
That it's profitable for them to exit. Yeah.
Is there like a story behind how you got to um kind of like focus or major on this idea?
Yeah. I was at a retreat and I was looking at all of the work that I've done in my life, and I thought, you know what? I'm not building anything. And I really wanted to be able to create something that could give me wealth inside my business rather than just always sort of chasing revenue. And I started to go down this rabbit hole of looking at exiting and selling businesses and renovating businesses. And it just sort of evolved from there. Okay. A few years ago, I was at a retreat and I was looking at a big wall that we would be doing some planning of all of my work over the many years. And I thought to myself, I'm not really building anything that has long-term value. And I really wanted to sort of focus on that. And I really like the idea of buying and renovating and selling businesses because that would give me an asset and that I could grow. And I started to think about that in terms of my clients as well, and that they could do the same thing. And so I really kind of kicked off from there and started researching and selling businesses and that sort of thing, and then working with my clients on helping them build a more valuable business.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I like the story. Uh, for this episode, I'd love over the course of this episode, I'd love for you to walk us through how content creators, right, and um content creators, online businesses can turn their brand into a sellable business, right? And so for most of the questions I'll be asking you, they'll be regarding this core topic and theme, right? Yeah. So still on that idea, the question I want to ask is a lot of creators, they have views, they have followers, right? But what would you say is like the biggest mental shift they need to like make to start treating their brand like a business?
I think they need to start understanding what is valuable, right? Like what would someone else be interested in inside their business that they could focus on building and eventually have to sell? Because you don't just have to sell a business, you can sell assets inside your business, right? So looking at their business, not just in terms of followers or likes or vanity metrics, but what are they creating that could actually be sold?
Wow. I like the fact that you say that we just can't. It's not only the business itself. We can sell individual assets in the business.
Yes.
Can you like expand on that a bit for us?
Yeah, there's the business that I bought 2 years ago. I bought the assets of the business as opposed to the entity itself. And so with a lot of my clients, they may not necessarily want to sell off their business down the road, but they can build things inside their business that you can sell off to a buyer. So, somebody might build an event that they do every year and it becomes almost like a product with a brand. You could sell that as an asset that another person would acquire from inside your business.
Oh, oh, Okay. Okay. This is getting interesting. Now,
It's super interesting.
yeah, it's uh yeah. One of the things I've noticed is that most content creators, right? Most people who are in the media, the way they approach business is a bit different from how a traditional business owner approach business in terms of decision making. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Well, it's a different type of business, right? You're essentially building an audience and you're building content for that audience, and you need to be hyper aware of how you're responding to that audience, and so you become, super focused on your brand, right? Your what you do as a brand, it's very much a personal brand, um, and how you are engaging with people. So you're not necessarily selling a thing, but you are creating value inside of your audience. And your audience can be an asset inside your business for sure. But it's just a different business model, right? There's lots of different types of business models out there.
Yeah. The question I want to ask is, for a lot of creators, most of them, it's not necessarily a business, it's a hobby, right? They do it as one of those things that, okay, it's just one of the things I like doing. It's not really, what I would love to call, okay, this is a business, right? In the strictest sense. How can we shift from, okay, from it being just a hobby and we getting serious to say, okay, now it's a business? What are some changes one would make if I was like, okay, now I'm ready to get serious?
Well, as soon as you start collecting any sort of compensation for the work that you're doing, like content creators are interesting because they're entirely focused on building an asset, right? They tend not to start out focused on building products or services that they can offer. They're entirely focused on building it. So they're doing the assets first. Whereas in traditional businesses, they tend to think about their assets after and they start thinking about building a product or a service. So with a content creator, once they get to a certain point where they're thinking, I've got enough leverage here. I've got an audience and a brand that I've built. What am I going to do with it? Then they start thinking more like a traditional business. What can I sell to this audience that I've got? What can I create on top of the monetization I get just from the creation of my content, right?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things you mentioned was how we just it's not all about selling the whole business. We could also sell assets in the business, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, there are businesses that have a lot of liabilities, and there are also businesses even in the same vertical that have a lot of assets, right? So for me, the question is, um, is it possible for you to give examples of what an asset would look like for content creators so that we know, okay, um, how we can start building in each and every one of them?
Well, they're already building assets if they're building an audience, or if they have a brand that they have created, or if they have partnerships that they have created. Oftentimes they'll have, sponsorships or partners with, other organizations that are doing the same thing. So I have a guide around the 9 types of assets you can build inside your business, and content creators and they have creative assets too. They've got content they've created. They've got, lots and lots of stuff that they do creatively as part of their business. So they're a very asset rich business already. And, if they wanted to, they could go into, creating intellectual property around their approach or around what they've kind of figured out in terms of being a business content creator. They could make investments inside their business. They might make services or productized services, or they might make products. So they're already starting kind of at the asset focus, right?
Yeah. While you were answering the question, you mentioned that you have a guide about the 9 types of assets a business could create. Can you walk us through that?
Yep. Well, we already just covered about 5 of them. But, a product, of course, is an asset inside your business, and that's something that can be sold, and that's probably the most obvious. A productized service is another thing that can be sold, um, and that's where you put, like, a structure around the delivery of a service so that it's repeatable and it's kind of in a box, right? And then we have an audience. So if you have a big audience, if you have a big list, if you have, people watching and eyeballs watching you, that's an asset that's worth something. If you have a brand, that's worth something as well, especially if you've, formalized that brand, but brand recognition and that like there's equity inside of a brand. Intellectual property, if you've created frameworks or you've created some methodology or approach to something, that can be turned into an asset and that can be leveraged for sure. Creative work, so all of the creative content that you create inside your business, whether it's for marketing purposes or whether it's for operational purposes, those are also assets inside your business. If you have investments inside the business that you've created, those are also obviously straight through assets. If you have partnerships inside the business that are formalized, those are assets as well. I don't know if that's the all 9. There's one I'm missing.
Yeah.
Like trademarks. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for walking us through that. Now, I like the fact that it's 9. So right now, while you were mentioning those the 9 types, my mind was just coming up with different ideas of a couple of other things I could do for my business, right? And I love for us to get into actual examples, right? Let's say okay, I'll give an example. Let's say I'm a creator, right? Let's say I wanted to sell my business to you or sell something to my business to you. What are the questions you ask me, and how would that influence how you 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 price or buy if you buy the products or even consider listening to me in the first place? The question is, if I was to, let's say I wanted to sell my if I wanted to sell my creator business or assets to you, what are some things that would influence the price that you give for the business, or what are some things that you kind of like? How do I put it now? Can we like do let's say a role play where you ask me a couple of questions, and depending on the answer, you tell me if we have a deal or not.
Okay. All right. What's the size of your audience?
Okay, it's about 10,000 to 100,000. I'm not exactly too sure.
That's a really big range. 10,000 is a very different audience than 100,000. But let's say you have 50,000.
Okay.
Okay. And what would you say in terms of brand recognition do you have? If you were out there in the world, would someone recognize your brand off the street?
Well, recognition. I'd say most how do I even gauge that?
Well, if you were out, let's say you were at an event that pertained to whatever industry or market you were in, would there likely be somebody at that event who would recognize you or recognize your brand?
Yeah, a couple of persons.
A couple. Okay. Okay. And how much money are you making right now off of your content?
Okay. Monthly or annually?
Matter.
Okay. Let's say
Annually.
hypothetically, annually. Let's say let's say $100,000.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
How big is the potential market for you to expand into?
Oh, the potential market is it's in terms of billions.
Billions.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
You must be selling, or you must be making memes or something. So there's billions of people who are interested in the content that you produce or the topic of the content you produce, right?
Yeah.
How hard would it be for you to grow your reach inside that market of billions of people?
Not so hard, as long as there's time, there's the resources are available. Yeah.
Yeah. Why haven't you done that so far?
I mean, we've been growing steadily over time. You can see the graph, hypothetical graph.
It's very nice. It's a nice,
Yeah.
that's for sure. So you would predict that, given all of the circumstances externally, that you would um, anticipate that graph to continue on the upscale, continue growing. And would you have to invest? When would you have to invest some more money to be able to continue to grow?
Yeah, like all things being equal, if we'll continue spending as much as we spend on growth and marketing, we should continue growing at this rate.
Okay. And is there a
And
possibility that, like, how volatile is your audience? Is there a possibility that you might be taken out by another content creator?
I mean, anything can happen. There's no guarantee, but I would say my audience they're quite loyal.
The loyal. Okay. Good.
Yeah,
And is it a pretty diverse audience, or is it very specific?
very specific.
It's very specific. Okay.
Yeah.
And have you ever tried selling anything to them?
No. I've just been building the reach and all that. Yeah.
Okay. And what kind of content do you create for them?
No, I make YouTube videos and that's it.
And is it instructional, or is it opinion, or is it entertainment?
It's entertainment challenge style videos.
Okay. So it's mostly, I'm guessing you're marketing to a younger audience.
Yeah,
Okay. Mostly men in their 20s and 30s.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And how hard is it for you to create the content? Like, what do you require in order to do that?
I mean, it takes about you know with just me and everything, it takes about 2 weeks to from start to finish for each of the content.
And what happens if you win the lottery? Can someone else continue to do the work?
Yeah, but I'd say I'm kind of the face of the content.
And there's no one else who creates content with you?
I mean, they could help with the scripting, editing, search, and all those other things. But at the end of the day, I still have to be on camera.
What's unique about your content or your business model?
What's unique?
What's different? What's different than your competitors?
Oh, I mean, we have a different approach to the content itself, and yeah. What's unique? Well, that's a strong one. Never really thought about that.
Like, do you do something differently? Do you have an approach that no one else could replicate?
Hmm.
Do you have inside information to something that gives you an edge?
Nah. I mean, we're just there. We're like almost every other person in our industry.
Right. And have you ever partnered with any other brands or any businesses in your space, or sponsors, anything like that?
No.
No. Okay. Well, I'll leave it at that. I could go on questioning you for probably an hour. But if you can, if you heard what I was sort of asking for, I wanted to understand how diversified your audience was, because this is all the things that we do in evaluation exercise where we talk about all of the risks, right? So an evaluation isn't just about the numbers. It's about what are all the things that affect the numbers. So are you totally dependent on one type of audience? Because that's a risk, right? So that would probably lower your valuation. Do you have anything unique about what you're creating that it would be a high cost of entry for them to try and do it? Like, you have access to certain things that nobody else does, or you have a certain approach or equipment that you use to create your content or whatever. And if you don't, then your valuation is probably a little weaker. If you serve only one audience, you're at risk. If you had a very small audience and a small potential audience, that's not always a bad thing. Like, niche, there's a lot of value inside of niche focused businesses, for sure, and a niche focus. But I want to know that there's opportunities for growth, right? If you said to me, we have 10,000 people in our audience and there's a market size of 100,000, it's not a lot of growth, right? Like, there's not a lot of opportunity for growth there. But you said there are billions of people who would be interested in consuming the concept and becoming part of your audience. And so there's good growth potential there, for sure. Have a unique process. So I'm interested in that because that could be a competitive advantage. You haven't started monetizing products or services yet, so I think there's a big growth opportunity there. I would like to see more rapid growth in your audience, and so I would want to know what you've done before and what's worked, and whether that would be easy for me to continue to do as a buyer. Because the brand is all about you right now, that makes it a little bit challenging, and so I would want a transition period where we could introduce or even just neutralize the brand so that it was maybe faceless or a different style or what have you. So if I can't have you as part of the brand, how much does that affect it? That would be a really big one. Now, the business that I bought was a personal brand, so it's always possible to do that, right? It is possible to turn it into something else. But those are the kinds of things I'm looking for. Like, where's the risk in the business? What's the opportunity for growth? How hard would it be to do that? What are the things that are going to stop our growth? Do we have a risk of competition? Like, how volatile is this audience? And if it's just entertainment, that can be quite volatile. So is that something that I would want to take on? The upsides can be really big, but they can also turn on a dime, right? So those are all the things that I'm asking about. And there's lots more questions. I have a whole page of them that we go through when we do evaluation. But those are all of the things, like getting a valuation or getting a buyer to value a company is all about that stuff, as opposed to just, your revenue numbers and your expenses.
Yeah, like being on the hot seat, it just gets me to evaluate some of the choices that I'm making. Like, I like some of the questions where you start asking, what's unique about your business? What makes you different from the rest of the people in the industry? Can you hear me?
Oh, you're back now. Yeah.
Yeah. I said, being on the hot seat, it just forced me to evaluate some of the choices and ask myself, what makes me different from every other business in industry?
The work that I do with my clients is, it's kind of unique, right? I'm a business architect, right? I'm a business model designer. I work with people building their business models and building their growth plans. But when we look, and I also work with them on their exits, but when we look at a business from the perspective of an exit, just like we did right now, I do a benchmark valuation with them. And even if they don't plan on selling for 10 years, starting there helps uncover all of the places that you can either de-risk your business or find new opportunities for growth. So just like you and I talked about just right now, it opened up areas for you that if you want to build this business into something you could sell, or that you would sell for a higher amount or better valuation, you would want to look at all of those things we just talked about. How can I diversify? How can I find partnership opportunities? How can I strengthen the brand? How can I, grow faster, like all that kind of stuff, right? So you would build a growth strategy that works towards making your business a more valuable asset rather than just chasing, marketing and revenue, right? That's what a lot of people end up doing in their businesses, is they just keep throwing more money after marketing and they think that's the only way to grow. But I would argue, work towards a much longer term focus, which is how can I actually sell some of these pieces of my business or the whole thing on its own, and make smart strategies for growth that actually work towards that kind of value.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. In a short while, I would ask you to expand on some of the things one could do to um, build assets in a creator business. But before I ask that question, the question I want to ask is, if you don't mind, can you share a bit about the business you bought?
Sure. Yeah. It was actually a business that I had helped design and build with one of my clients about 4 or 5 years before. And she had just gotten to the point where she was ready to leave. And I really loved this business and I had been part of it for a long time. We hadn't worked together in a couple of years, but so I decided to just acquire the assets of the business and build it out myself.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm pushing it, but Like what's the business about?
It's we teach freelancers, virtual assistants. We teach them how to build a business.
Oh,
So
oh,
it's right up my alley.
yeah. So
Courses and I basically bought for audience, right?
yeah, so it's basically a creator business in the strictest sense of the word.
Oh, I'm a course creator. Yeah. We do coaching and community and courses and yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Okay. So the question I want to ask now is, you've talked about, so you said, earlier on when you were concluding the previous question, you talked about, okay, if I want to start a business, I need to make some conscious decisions, or how do I diversify? How do I do this? How do I do that? Right? Um, the first one I remember is, how do I diversify? Right? Now, let's say, because now when you start asking the question, I just realized that I know, even though it was a hypothetical business and everything, I realized that, dude, you don't really actually have a business. Like, you have views and followers, but there's really nothing going on here, right? So the question I want to ask is, if I wanted to diversify, what would, as a creator business, and it's a good thing that you bought a creator business too. So what would be some things that one could do to, to diversify the business and, build assets from diversification? Then you can walk us through some other methods too.
Well, you can diversify along a number of different lines. You can diversify your audience, so you can, start marketing to different audiences. Sometimes you don't have to change your service or your product or your offering at all, but you could just start focusing on calling in different types of audiences for whom that would pertain. And so that would be around some targeted marketing. You can diversify your offers. So, you might create complementary offers that would, you know, that would give you new revenue channels, right? So you're trying to diversify your revenue channels because you have all your revenue coming from one place that puts you at risk, right?
Yeah.
And if you wanted to diversify your business or your delivery model, you might diversify your offers in the sense that you have some revenue coming from content creation and sponsorships, that kind of thing. You might also have revenue coming from, digital products that you sell. You might have revenue coming from, high ticket services, or like, you sell your time for an advisory session or something like that, right? There's lots of different stuff that you could do, but you want to diversify anywhere that you have a dependency on one offer or one channel or one type of revenue or what have you. Then you can diversify across those and then build up the revenue sources from those diversified channels.
Yeah. So
You're limiting risk inside the business.
yeah. So my takeaway from what you just said is, from that hypothetical business I just gave, my major channel was YouTube. So if I wanted to diversify, what I could do is, I noticed we didn't have any revenue streams. Noticed we could maybe create a course or something like that, and then we could move from just being only YouTube, and then maybe add Instagram, TikTok to the mix.
Sure. And that's very easy to do with course creators. You'll notice that they post the same video across all the different channels, right? So that's just opening audiences.
Yeah.
And you don't have a dependency on a platform. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we've walked through. Wow, this kind of like a master class. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Yeah. We've walked through diversification, right? Uh, and you talk about, there's so many channels, that the principle behind diversification is basically trying to reduce dependency on one source as much as possible, whether it's revenue, audience, channel, offer, and etc. Right? What's the next after diversification? What's the next thing I could do? That to make the business, really, really, really good.
I would focus on growth. Like, how are you going to grow? So you're going to grow through, your content channels, or you're going to grow through partnerships. To me, person collaborations are the most cost effective and quick way to build your audience and to grow. So I would be spending some time thinking about what growth means to me.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked about growth, collaboration, and stuff like that. Now, let's say, for example, right? Let's say, for example, I have let's say I have a news podcast, right? And that news podcast, basically the way I monetize the news podcast is I monetize it by premium subscribers, merch, and then yeah, and maybe a mastermind, something like that. Not necessarily courses or any of those stuff, but a mastermind, premium subscribers for additional episodes on the news podcast. Now, let's say my collaboration strategy for growth is to guest on other relevant podcasts on my in my niche or category, right? Let's say the kind of news I talk about is business news, right? I could go to tech podcast, all these other industries around business, and guest as a podcast guest. Would you consider that as an effective form of collaboration, or not?
Extremely. Yeah. So you see that happening right now as we speak with everything going on in the States with independent news sources, right? Independent content creators for the news. And the top ranked news podcast right now is the Minus Touch. And they have outgrown every other one. And they are totally independent. They are not sponsored. They do not have any affiliation with any traditional news center. And you're seeing this huge explosion of these independent content creators in the news field. And they're all showing up on each other's podcasts. They're all growing together as this really, really interesting, it's like a fascinating thing to watch in terms of growth. And it's all audience, right? But they're collaborating with each other and creating this this social proof to each other, and they're all like cross-pollinating. And so they're building this huge movement of independent um, political analysts and news creators and that sort of thing. And that's now got far more attention than traditional news media.
Yeah. Um, Now, I see podcast guesting kind of like a level one, or maybe like a stage one of what potential collaboration could be. Is there a way I could like take it up further and maybe kind of like upgrade the kind of collaboration and partnership?
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily agree with you that is level one. I mean, some of these podcasts are the top the top media outlets anywhere. So I would say that they're actually incredibly strategic. But certainly if your business is as a content creator for news, I would be considering how else I could get exposure through people who provide other types of services, who are still reaching your same audience. So I don't know who your audience is for your news media channel, but let's say it's 30 to 50-year-olds, left wing men, right? So
Yeah.
if that's who you're serving, who else serves them? Who else do they listen to? Or what else do they pay attention to? What brands do they pay attention to? What do they buy? So if they buy Volkswagens, you might be looking for a collaboration with Volkswagen to try and bolster your brand and get more attention. You might be looking at a collaboration with, a beer company that this demographic likes to drink, or anything, right? So you go and you figure out who you're trying to reach, and then you look for collaboration opportunities there. And sometimes there's collaboration opportunities around positioning, and sometimes there's collaboration opportunities around content creation. So there may be another content creator that you collaborate with, that you partner with. There's, collaboration opportunities by being a sponsor for an event, right? There's collaboration opportunities where you teach. There's endless ways that you can use collaboration and partnerships. It's my favorite strategy. I think it's the most effective, it's the cheapest, and it gets you the growth in a much shorter period of time than anything else does.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. A lot of light bulbs are turning on in my head right now.
Good. I hope so. That's the goal,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. Like, my approach to content and business and of everything is going to change after this podcast episode, and I know that will be the same thing for those listening to the podcast right now.
Awesome. Well, that's my greatest hope, that I can help people think.
Yeah, you've walked us You've walked us through diversification. You walked us through growth. Is there a next stage?
Well, once you've gotten to the point where you're thinking about exiting, then I would say you want to start creating an exit roadmap. So, what does that actually look like? Even if you're 3 or 5 years out, right? What does that actually look like? And can you start to get a little bit more specific? And now the work that you do is in the service of that roadmap so that you can build that valuation and you can get to the point where you're ready to exit. Now, before you get ready to exit, you want to first think about what's going to happen after you exit. What are you going to do once you've given that business to someone else or given those assets to someone else? It's really important for you to have that sort of post-exit strategy because a lot of people get really stuck there, right? So you want to do all of your exit planning. You want to figure out, well, what would you like to sell for? Who would you like to sell to? Where's the values alignment? What does that need to look like for you? And what's your strategy going to be for finding a buyer? Are you going to work with an advisor? Are you going to work with a broker? Are you going to list on a marketplace? All that kind of stuff. Starting to get much more specific around where you want to kind of work towards.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Okay. Okay. So what you're saying right now is that if I was to, before I even get to the post exit plan or roadmap, if I was to focus on diversification and growth, and then go through into the little steps, right? That I would have a business that it will be ready for sale. That there's no like this is the third box, right? That I could also work on to have a sellable business.
Well, sure, but I mean that all comes down to the details and to execution, and it's going to take a while, right? None of this stuff
Yeah,
happens overnight.
yeah,
But my whole point is like coming from that perspective and having that plan means you're making decisions early on that are going to help you build a sellable, valuable business, as opposed to just chasing the numbers, right? Chasing the revenue, chasing the audience growth, because that's so fleeting, right? That can shift in an instant, right? All you need is for something to happen that could influence that, and then you're kind of screwed, right? So as a content creator, I would be looking for diversification in terms of all the different channels I have,
yeah,
revenue channels.
yeah. Earlier on, why answering one of the questions, you mentioned that you're a business architect.
Yeah, that's what I'm called.
Yeah, yeah. You one of the things I've noticed, and from that hypothetical example I gave, one of the things I noticed is that most creator businesses don't have a sustainable revenue streams. So could you share with us some business models that work well for content creators?
Well, I think we've talked about them, but it's, the content creation is a business model on its own. But I would be looking to diversify where I'm going to get money from. So maybe you're going to sell some products. Maybe you are going to have paid collaborations. Maybe you're going to have paid sponsorships. Maybe you are going to be, but all of those things depend on the size of your audience. And if your audience all of a sudden leaves you for some reason, then you're kind of high and dry. So then I would be taking the content I've created and turning that into something that's valuable as well. So what can I sell that can be generated from my content that I've been creating? People will pay for curation, right? They will pay for, even if I could find all of your videos individually by searching and doing a bunch of research, if you packaged up some of those videos and you said, here's a course, or here's an anthology, or here's something like that, you could sell that and people will pay because they don't have to go and do that themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, again, like getting a little bit more creative about understanding what people will pay for. You could pursue, paid partnerships. You could pursue speaking. You could pursue, anything where you're building your brand. So I think there's lots of, it really kind of comes down to the industry too. Like specific industries would have much more diverse options in terms of, other revenue channels, really depending on what it is, right?
Oh, it's a good thing you mentioned speaking gigs and all those things, right? Most creators, what the business model is, they just turn on YouTube ads, or yeah, and basically that's how they make their money, and that's it.
It's a slippery slope. I mean, you're putting a lot of risk, right? And not that I have anything against ads, like a lot of people have grown that way, but I've also seen a lot of businesses that overnight can have their entire revenue stream disrupted because something changes in the algorithm or something changes in the way that ads are served up or what have you. So it's not entirely reliable, right? And all of the different ads platforms are going to have different restrictions or different changes that they make in terms of what they'll serve and how they'll serve it. So to me, it's not a reliable channel. So I would say, like, absolutely monetize your content, but you better have a backup plan, right?
Yeah, I mean, content creation itself. Um, yeah. Now, when you talk about speaking gig, I don't know. Let me just share with you some what I've been thinking of is maybe one could put as a revenue stream a system in place for for reaching out to potential people who are looking for speakers for events, and then using the content platform or forever, let's say that YouTube channel I was talking about, I could use that YouTube channel to share to showcase my work, kind of my portfolio of, okay, I'm good at this thing that I want to speak on this event. Here's my YouTube channel. You can go check out and see some of the stuff I've done. And then from that, I get to go to speaking gigs.
Yeah, for sure. There's lots of offline stuff that you can do. You can sell yourself as an advisor, right? In your
Okay.
field. You can, sell your time as an advisor in your field. You could sell your time as a creative professional. You could sell your time as, I don't know, depends on your business. But if you're creating news, I mean, you could certainly sell yourself as as a guest expert around something or other.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots. I mean, there's so much that you can do, right? And I would, if I was getting that kind of luck as a content creator, I would be leveraging it as soon as I had an audience to build my personal brand outside of that particular platform and look for different ways that I can create those other revenue channels. And then even if my audience suddenly goes away or shrinks or something happens, I've now become a known personal brand. I've seen this happen, right? I'm now a known personal brand in the offline world, and that gives me just a lot more leverage.
Yeah. One of I think this is a question that has been bugging me, and that is, can creators sell their business, their brand, even if it's tied closely to their personal identity?
Well, that's what we talked about earlier. And that's why I would say if I was going to buy a personal brand, I would be working with that. I would be having a clause in there where we are, we have even like a 12-month transition period where we start to shift and neutralize the brand. It really kind of depends. Like I bought a business that had a very strong personal brand and it's been fully neutralized now. And I would say like there was some impact to our business operations and our revenue because we eventually pulled that personal brand out. But I would say in the content creation world, like there were still assets inside my business that were marketable, right? The assets and what we were selling wasn't dependent on the person. In a content creation type scenario, it's all about the person and that's the product, right? So that's it makes it harder to buy. So you would want to have some type of, creative transition plan where the content starts to become more neutralized or there's someone else who starts to become a partner and shows up in the content and over the period of a year, it would transition over to that person. So there are ways to do it for sure. Would it be a business I'd be investing in? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it would depend on
Yeah.
how willing that personal brand was to stick around and help me do that transition.
Yeah. Let's say I like the yeah. Let's say I like the idea for selling the business, but I don't exactly want to sell my business, but I just want to step away from the business a bit, right? Kind of like, something between not selling the business and then selling the business, right? What are some of the options out there for me, right? And then earlier on, you mentioned about selling some assets of the business instead of the whole business. Can you like expand on that a bit and give some examples?
So what you're talking about is an operational exit where we take the owner out of the business and the business continues to operate without them. And so obviously somebody needs to be there to do the work and to, keep the business running. So we would certainly want to make sure that there was the right team in place to be able to do that, or the tools or the resources or a new model or something like that. And then again, if this is a personal brand, if this is like a person-driven content, then I would want to, again, figure out what that transition plan is. If it's content that slowly becomes less and less about that person and more about the subject area, then we would probably do that over a longer period of time, because you don't want to like disrupt your audience and get them upset. But in terms of assets to build inside the business for an operational exit, was that the question?
The question is more like, I don't want to completely let go of the business, but I want to like step away and then make some money too. You understand? So it's not, I'm not selling it,
Right.
but
Yeah, right. So you could actually create an entirely different, business model where everything, like what you're selling, is access to something that you don't have to maintain, right? So you could transition to selling a digital product. You could transition to selling, some type of content feed that didn't require a lot of work, like for you to be there or to what have you. Like you could create some offshoot of the work that you are doing already that may not depend on you, not require you. It depends on whether you want to have people, whether you don't want to have people, whether you're interested in going full AI. I've seen completely AI generated podcasts that you would never know are completely AI generated. Really slick stuff, right? Kind of interesting. So yeah, again, the creativity here is around knowing what the actual business is and trying to figure out what that operational model would look like if you took you out of it. But there's lots of different options. It's kind of depends on the business.
yeah. I do have a couple of scenarios, and I would just like you to kind of give rapid fire answers to these scenarios. And I know it's not going to be that easy, because once you hear some of the scenarios, they might be require you to like, some of them might even be an episode on their own. But I'd love for you to like just give rapid fire answers to them. The first one is I think you've hinted on this before. I think that's even the example I gave when we did the hypothetical. Is, imagine I'm a YouTuber with 100K subscribers, but no real monetization strategy beyond ad revenue. What will be your first steps in helping me build a sustainable, profitable business?
Diversification.
Okay, okay, okay.
You wanted rapid fire.
Diversification. Okay. Um, Say I'm a podcaster who's struggling to turn my audience into paying customers, right? I have the audience, I have listeners, but for some reason, I just don't have something that they can pay for. What's a business model shift I could make right away?
To turn listeners into paid customers?
Yeah, I'm a podcaster. Yeah. And I need my audience to pay me for something. What's a model I could use right now?
Value added subscriptions.
What's that?
Well, it's like Substack, right? Where you can pay for another level of access to content from that creator, and there's value added content in there, and depending on what the podcast is about, you would create something that would be more highly valuable for them.
Okay. The next one is, let's say I've built a strong personal brand, but I don't see how it could ever run without me. How can I start making my brand less dependent on me as the face of the business?
What kind of business are you running? That depends.
Okay. Well, let's. Which example could I give to you now? I don't know.
Well, if you're running a content creation business like we've talked about, then you would want to figure out whether you are turning this into, a faceless content engine without you, or if you are interested in bringing someone else on and slowly taking it over, or if you want to stop creating digital, like video content, and you want to move to some other type of content. Like, I think there's options there, but I need to know what type of business is this. If it's a business like the one that I bought, then that's easier, right?
Yeah. Thank you for that. How time flies. If I'm a creator making full-time income from brand deals, but I want to transition to having my own products, what's the smartest way to do this without losing momentum?
Leverage what you've got already.
Can you expatiate on that? Because I'm lost.
You're a full-time content creator, right?
Yeah.
And you want to transition to a product business.
Yeah. Instead of brand deals.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to take the work that you've already created and figure out a way to turn that into a product, something that people want to buy.
Yeah.
You could do that. You could do that overnight, right?
Yeah.
And you start marketing that to your audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I guess that's not really a major problem because once you have an audience, it's just about creating something that solves their problem.
Yeah, we talked about earlier, curating a bunch of your old content into some focused, topic focused bundle, or people pay for curation, they pay for convenience, they pay for individualization. Like, there's lots of different ways you could take everything you've created already and make something more specific around it that is focused on a particular problem or a particular need or a particular opportunity or particular interest from your group.
Yeah. The last one is if a creator has multiple income streams but no clear business structure, right? They have brand deals, they have ads, but the income structure is not clear, it's not predictable, it's not understandable, right? How can they what are the first steps into organizing it into something more sustainable?
Hire a business coach.
Wow.
Hire a strategist that can help you bring a second set of eyes, because the problem is that you haven't done it because you are too close to your business. You
Yeah.
can't see it, right? You can't it's obviously not your priority. So get somebody in to help you with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all for the rapid fire. Before we conclude, is there anything you'd love to share with my audience that I didn't get to ask you in?
I don't think so. I think that the most important thing is to know that that an exit is an option for you, or some type of transition is an option for you. And once you start thinking in that perspective, you start making different decisions about your business, that it's going to help you in the long run.
Yeah. Where can listeners connect and learn more about what you do?
Best way to find me is on my website, which is stephaniehayes.biz, and I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really, really do appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and I feel like I just had a master class with my business coach. Yeah.
Now you need to go and have a nap.
Thanks for tuning in to Wisdom Journey. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I hope that this conversation gave you fresh insights and real motivation for your content creation journey. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow content creator. You never know who might need that one spark to keep going. You can support the show by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/wisdomhq and explore more resources. Until next time, keep creating, keep growing, and keep walking your wisdom journey, your creation journey. Yeah, bye-bye.